Going on, squad? It's the big homie back again with some words of wisdom. I'm here to talk about how to attain peace in your life by healing your trauma. Now, I know for me, I'm always talking about me in these videos. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm just giving you my own life experience on what I dealt with and how I was able to overcome a lot of obstacles in my life. I know for me personally, my trauma stemmed from not having my father in my life the way that I would like him to be. And I always tell people my dad was not a bad father. When I was around him, he always treated me well. We always had a good time, but he just wasn't present in the way that I would have liked him to be. So it caused for me to have a lot of abandonment issues throughout my life. And I learned as I got older that I often would get into relationships with people and I would overgive in scenarios because I was trying to make up for a void that was left inside of me. So I was looking for what I was missing from them, and I would do stuff for them so that they would never feel how I was feeling on the inside. But at the end of the day, that's something personal within me. That was my trauma. Everybody has their own trauma and what they deal with. But once you realize whatever the trauma is, then you can take back your power. Then you can say, okay, that's what it was and that's where it stems from. And this is why I have these certain triggers, or I have this certain way of doing things, or why maybe certain situations end up moving the way they move. It usually stems from if it goes wrong. That is, if you're moving and everything's going right, then you don't have no issues. But if things keep going wrong and you see a certain pattern that stems from, like I said, something that you do or something that somebody else might be doing to you that you're attracting, it's mostly because of the trauma that you had going on early in your life that you never dealt with. So the best way to bring peace into your life is to understand that everybody has trauma and figure out what your trauma is. And once you pinpoint it, then you can say, okay, and then take steps from there to soothe it and accept it and reflect on it and then move past it, because that's the only way you're going to be at peace, is when you meet that trauma head on. Oftentimes we think we got these demons and all this other stuff, or whatever you want, this darkness on us, or whatever you want to call it, but really at the end of the day, it's just your inner child is still hurting from whatever situation you dealt with as a child, because it usually stems from something that happened to you as a child. You know what I mean? Like I said, for me, it was not having my father in my life, and seeing situations my mother went through that I felt like she shouldn't have had to. But now that I'm older, I understand that certain things happen because they just happen, and you gotta adapt and overcome and go within yourself in order to really just come to terms with it. You know what I mean? You gotta really work on your inner self. That's really what it is. You can do everything on the outer self to try to mask it or to try to make yourself feel better, but none of that stuff actually works. It's not until you actually face what's going on the inside here, that you actually make some real headway, some real progress. So I know a lot of people in my life I've talked to, and I know they have their traumas, and I always hope the best for them, and I always try to give them the same advice that I would give anybody, since I figured it out for myself. And that's, you gotta work on the things that you're not facing. You can't run from it. The more you run from it, the worse it gets. The longer you let it go, the worse it's gonna get. I was watching this movie with my kids the other day, and the movie's called Orion, and it's basically about the light and the dark. And we all have that within us. We all have light and we all have dark. And neither one of those is good or bad, really. If you break it down, we all think that darkness is bad, but it's really not. They're both two sides of one coin. So you can't have one without the other. That's how you create balance. And balance is how you create peace. So if you walk within your light, but you never address the dark, then that creates an imbalance, and then that creates inconsistencies within your life, and then that therefore dictates how your life's gonna go. For me, I didn't understand. I always understood that there was a duality of the light and the dark, but I didn't really understand that my darkness was overtaking a lot of the situations in my life, that and then turning them into something they didn't have to be. So because most of us are not at peace, really. I can say I'm at peace now because I've actually dealt with my stuff and healed myself and moved on from it. But for the most part of my life, I wasn't. I'm 38 now, but for, I could say, 37 years, really. Even if you want to even say, because this last year was, I had to learn a lot about myself still, and I probably still would learn a lot about myself, but I can confidently say now that I'm at peace. Things were up and down, up and down, up and down, because 1 minute you're walking in the light, 1 minute you're walking in the darkness. Instead of bringing them both together, merging them into one controlled source and using them both when it is applicable. So, like I was saying, in that movie, it depicted light and dark. And in that movie, the kid was scared of the dark, and the darkness took him on a ride and showed him the importance of the darkness. And when the darkness left in the movie, the light was there, but the light ended up burning everything because it was too much light. Like, you can't light. And that's why I want to go back to saying, like, neither one of them is good or bad. Like, the light is just as important as the darkness is. Without light, then darkness overshadows everything. But without darkness, the light blinds you. So if you don't want to be blinded or overshadowed, you need to bring it together so you can see clearly. So at the end of the day, it's important for you to find inner peace with yourself, is you have to understand both sides of yourself, both sides of your duality, the yin and the yang. That's the whole yin yang symbol. That's the point of it, is to show you that there's supposed to be a balance. It's not supposed to be all light or all dark. It's supposed to be both coming together simultaneously to create harmony, which is equilibrium, which is balance. You know what I'm saying? So once you do that, then you can find true peace. But until you do that, then you're always going to be in turmoil, because you're going to have good points in your life, but then most of the time it's going to be not so good because you're running away from whatever trauma that you didn't heal. So my advice to anybody that's out there is to always, yes, you want to focus on the positives in life all the time, because focusing on positivity always brings more positivity. That's the law of attraction. But you also have to understand that if you have trauma that you never really dealt with, that until you do deal with it, you're going to keep attracting that, because in the back of your mind, that's always going to be a thought of yours. Like, you're always going to go back and think of, if a situation happens, that's what you're going to go back to, is, oh man, when I was a kid, this happened, and that's why this is happening to me now. Or you'll self-sabotage because something happened to you when you were a kid, and you're so caught up on that happening and you haven't let it go, that you feel like every situation that you get in is going to turn out just like how that did. And that's not the case. Like, it's the only reason why it's turning out that way is because you never let go of the situation that hurt you when you were a kid, not realizing that that's a whole completely different version of yourself than what you are now. Like, when I was a kid, yeah, that happened to me when I was a kid. My dad wasn't around as much as I would like him to be. I went through a lot of stuff when I was a kid, but I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not even that person anymore. Yeah, I'm still in this body, in this avatar, whatever you want to call it, but who I am internally is not the same person who I was when I was an 8-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid, when I was 23, when I was 32, when I was 37. I'm not that same person. Every year, you got a chance to be somebody different. You're walking into a different version of yourself. So with that knowledge, then unless you want to keep repeating the same patterns and you don't want peace in your life, then by all means, ignore everything that I just said. But if you do want peace in your life, it's really not that hard to get it and attain it. It's just you have to go within and face that darkness, embrace it, because your darkness gives you power that your light can't. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things that you can utilize your darkness for that you can't utilize the light for. That's why it's there. That's the whole point of the darkness. You're supposed to be using them both congruently and in a harmonious way so that you can attain what you need to attain, which is peace. And once you attain peace, then all of the blessings that are meant for you will come in like water, like rain, like a river flowing. You know what I'm saying? It can't be stopped. So the only thing that's stopping you from getting all the stuff that you want is you at the end of the day. And I know this to be a fact because the minute that I healed my stuff, and really every time I worked on something and I completed a certain task within myself, if you want to put it that way, it was like, and then something good came afterwards. So to anybody that's out there that has trauma or whatever the case may be, and if you do really want peace, then again, my best advice to you is to look inward. Make sure you acknowledge the positives and embrace that, but you also have to embrace the darkness within you because it's a part of you. We all have it. You know, heaven and hell isn't really, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I can't say I know this for a fact, but just from my own research and everything that I've come to understand, heaven and hell is not a real place. It's just a depiction of your higher and lower self. So you can choose to be in heaven or in hell. But in order to escape the hell that you have, that means you need to face it. So you have to actually go through it in order to defeat it. And once you do that, then you attain power that nobody can take from you. You're unstoppable at that point. So that's just my words of wisdom from the big homie. You know, I'm going to come by here and give it to you how I see it and from my experience. And if it applies to you, it applies. And if it doesn't, I still wish you well on your journey. And I'll see you again with some more words of wisdom.